Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in, watching, or listening. Super excited to have you back. Um, we have a very exciting show for tonight. But before we bring on the next episode, which is a super awesome episode, I wanted to come on to share an exciting announcement with all of you. It's so crazy. It's unbelievable. I have to say, it's really unbelievable. Tonight is technically the fifth episode, although really it's just the fourth because we had a surprise with Bob Baxley in the middle of the week. But this is the fourth Saturday night of releasing an episode. The fifth, technically, I guess, show that we're putting on, and the feedback could not be more phenomenal. It's unbelievable to see how many people are listening, tuning in, watching, subscribing to the channel. It's unbelievable. I never could have dreamed that in such a short amount of time we would have such an incredible amount of positive, exciting feedback, which is fantastic and is humbling and just super exciting and just gives me the fuel that I need to continue to put the work and effort into the show. It's amazing. So, what exactly am I here to announce for a podcast? Like, you might be wondering how much more, could you do with the podcast? Well, we are bringing something super exciting to those of you who have been watching, listening, tuning in. Even if this is your first time, you still have this opportunity. It seems like one of the things that is so special about this podcast is that the people who are listening and tuning in are feeling very connected to the speakers, the show, to the content, to the guidance, the advice, the frameworks, and want more than just tuning in to listen and want more than just, listening, absorbing the information, and then just going on about their day. They really want to connect with each other, with the fellow listeners and watchers, or connect with the speakers, right? Like they want to take it one step further. And so I was trying to think, what could we do to kind of facilitate some sort of environment or platform to be able to bring everyone together, to support each other, to connect, to just to share, right? On a practical level, because that's what I'm all about, practical, right? Let's get practical here and take away one actionable next step that we can implement, right? So there's that piece, but also just the friendship, the support, no matter where you are as product leaders, as UX leaders, right? And when I say leaders, I even mean the junior designers. Yes, those of you who are in junior positions, you are leaders. That's a whole different episode in and of itself. But what I really want is just a place for all of us to come together, to support each other, to provide a mentorship, type of thing for those who are just starting out, and vice versa. And there's so much opportunity here. So I'm super excited to share with you that I have created a community, a special group platform on School to be able to have a place for us all to come together to connect. I've been able to put together a really amazing place where we will have weekly calls for support and to connect. If you're working on a project and you want some guidance, if you need some practical tools, workshop frameworks, templates, whatever it might be. Um, that is going to be like the platform for us to not only take what we learn on the podcast and just share what we heard or what like aha moment we had from listening in the podcast, but just being able to come together to support each other and to provide your expertise or to give advice or to ask for feedback on a project, the timeline, whatever it might be. So practical, but also a way to just support and be there for each other and to not feel like you're alone. I feel like sometimes for people who are working within a company you might be on a team that's amazing and supportive and that's great, but sometimes you might be the only designer on the team. You might be the only project manager, product owner, right? It could be that there are a few of them, but maybe you feel like a little bit alone or you feel like you want to connect with people outside of your organization. So I feel like it's great to have a place where everybody can come together. Now, some of you might be thinking, okay, that's really nice, but there's a lot of other, communities that we're part of. So why do we have to have another one? And I want to stress what makes this community unique and special. This community is going to be not only for people who are in product and UX leadership, meaning any job that is included in the product, UX, right? Anything in that umbrella, because we are all leaders. It's not about the title, right? It's about who we are as people. So, what is going to make it different? I want this community to be a place for people who are extra passionate about the importance of strategic alignment between business and product strategy. And that is what I want to focus on. I want to focus on encouraging, empowering, raising awareness of the importance of this strategic alignment, because it is a problem. It is a challenge that so many people are having. And so the more we can support each other, the more we can provide practical tips, frameworks, resources, workshops, ideas for how to create this alignment, how to facilitate this collaboration, how to increase our communication skills, our collaboration skills, our understanding of people and psychology, right? There's so much that goes into the work that we do, and leadership skills that we need, and soft skills that we have to work on, that I want this community to not just be a community of workshopping templates and all the practical, right, stuff that is important, and that within each episode, I work so hard to make sure that each and every one of you are walking away with something practical to implement, because that is critically important. I don't believe in just fluff talk. I believe in practical, when it comes down to business, what are we doing, right? But at the same time, not but, in addition to, and I think it's really important to have a place where we can come together, a community of support where we can come once a week, where we can come together, when we come once a month as a full group. If it's, there's going to be there's so many different ideas that I have. And as the community grows, it's going to become better and better. But I want there to be a place where we can come and say, I'm struggling, there's a challenging, situation that I'm dealing with right now at work. Has anyone dealt with a similar situation? What were some tips or strategies that you found to be helpful, right? Specifically with this piece of strategic alignment, right? Because so many of us are working in silos. Our departments are completely siloed. And when it comes to collaboration, you can get all these beautiful, fluffy articles on the internet. But at the end of the day, each company is unique. Each team is unique. Each organization has their own structure. And there are so many different variables that make up the organization. And when we're dealing with people, each and every situation is unique. So while it's, of course, important to have solid foundation on different tools and skills for collaboration, how to, improve on your communication and all that, I think it's important to be able to really connect with people who are in your situation, not just read an article and try to implement, but really work it through, workshop together, right? These are things that are important not only for support and like emotional support, but also practically, so that you can try to think through a challenge with people who are not, involved on a day-to-day, or totally like not subjective to the situation, and just provide guidance and advice and tips and ideas for either how they've done that in the past, or maybe how they would approach it if they were in your situation. So I'm going to probably be sharing a little bit more about this community as it starts to grow and become bigger, but I wanted to just get on here before we bring on the show and just tell you all about this awesome community. The link is going to be in the description below for those of you who are listening. For those of you who are watching, here is the link: www.school.com/unstoppableproductpioneers/about. And this is going to be not only a place for actionable tools and frameworks, and not only a place for collaborative growth, but a place for passionate leadership to come together, to support each other, to encourage strategic alignment within our organizations, to bring out the leadership skills and qualities that we all have within us that we might not believe that we do, right? To have weekly peer feedback and support sessions. It's going to be so awesome. I cannot wait. So again, make sure to go visit the link. Please not tell all your friends. This is not about go spread this, broadcast this to the world. Everyone has to join. This is a special community for people who understand the importance, who are passionate about the topic of strategic alignment between business and product strategy, for leadership to come together, to support one another, to provide guidance, tools, and frameworks and resources for each other, and to come together to create not just, a community, but a movement of passionate people who are going to change the way that we are doing things now for the incredibly better. And I am so excited. I cannot wait to hear your feedback in the comments below. Please reach out if you have any questions. And again, please make sure to check out the community and tell everyone that will benefit from it and be able to give and to get, because that's what's critically important. Everyone has what to give and everyone has what to learn. And I am so super excited to be a member with everybody, to be a member of a community of passionate product pioneers. Welcome to the Unstoppable Product Pioneer Podcast, where we bring product and UX managers, designers, business executives, and strategists together to unlock the power of strategic alignment. I'm Tamara Stoltz, and I am on a mission to empower you to drive meaningful, measurable, and impactful outcomes by aligning business and product strategies. In each episode, I sit down with industry experts who share their experiences, failures, and wins, giving you the insights and tools you need to ensure your alignment drives real business results. It's time to own your expertise, step into your power, and become unstoppable. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of the Unstoppable Product Pioneer podcast. Today is extra special for me personally because the show today is one that I'm so incredibly humbled. I don't really have words for it. The guest that we have today, for anyone that saw the thumbnail, is Joe Natoli. And before I bring Joe in, I have to say that the reason this is so special for me is because back in 2016, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, what career I wanted to explore, I downloaded Joe's course on UX design. And I remember sitting at my parents' dining room table and taking notes in my notebook about UX design and what this is. And that was in 2016. So Joe has been my teacher, my mentor, now my coach. And it's so incredibly humbling. And it is such an honor to have him on my podcast. So I want to welcome Joe and thank him so much for everything he's done for me up until now, but for also taking time out of his very busy schedule to be with us today. So welcome, Joe.
Thank you very much. The honor is absolutely, positively mine. Okay. In every conceivable manner. Like I've said in the past, there are no words for when somebody tells you how you've been a part of their journey. It's the same. So all the things that you said apply to me as well. It's amazing to me when people say, I encountered you at this point and you helped me at this point in my career. And these things really allowed me to get on my career path. It's incredible. And it never stops flooring me. I don't ever have an encounter where I don't feel like this is incredible. What a gift. I mean, for me, a gift.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so for those of you who are listening or watching and don't know who Joe is a UX consultant and he does trainings and he speaks internationally, but Joe's so much more than that. And I want to really tap into learning a little bit about, your experiences, your background,
Mm-hmm.
where you're coming from, and how you've really influenced and changed the lives of hundreds of thousands of UX product people, designers, managers, strategists, teams, corporate companies. Joe's influence is around the world. It's incredible.
Yeah, I tell the truth in a very loud voice, I think, and it carries. My story it's long and I'll try to condense it, but I tell you what's interesting is that lately when I think about this journey and how it's gone, it stems all the way back to when I was in high school, right? I was a creative kid. I was an artistic kid. I grew up in a very tiny town that was full of people that didn't understand that, right? A working class town, mostly Italian immigrants. When I got to the point where I had to talk to a counselor about going to college, I said, I want to do something creative with my life. I don't know what that is. This person's answer to me was that I should go join the army. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but his take was, and he literally said this to me, some people aren't cut out for certain things in life, and some people are better off taking orders from other people. So he just looked at me like, okay, dreamer, like you have no future, no career, no whatsoever. You need to go have someone else tell you what to do. I was so incensed by that I said some very choice words, stormed out of his office, and decided, no, that's not how this is going to go. And I was, born to two people who were very much independent thinkers, to say the least. So found graphic design in a college catalog, thought, okay, I can do this. I think I can do this. I think I can get a job doing it, et cetera, et cetera. Now, one of the greatest strokes of luck in my life is that I went into Kent State University design program, which was hard. You had two reviews. You had a sophomore review and a junior review and a senior thesis. If you failed either one of those two reviews, you could take it one more time. If you failed the second time, they politely suggested you do something else with your life. And the failure rate was like 53% or something like that. So it was intense. And I was, as all young people do, I was resistant to it at the time. But that discipline was one of the greatest gifts I've ever been given. Fast forward to a couple of years later, working in an ad agency, right around the time the internet starts to become a thing. This is from black text on a gray screen. I can't convince the old guys who run this agency, which was one of the largest in the world, that this what they used to call an internet it's a trend, it's a fad, it'll pass. It's whatever, World Wide Web, whatever. That literally, okay, that was the attitude. And they were like, whatever, kid, just go do what we tell you to do. Again, young enough, stubborn enough to say, no, I want to design for the web. I had no idea what that meant, nor did anyone else around me. But I was, again, brave enough or dumb enough to do it. So jump ship, started my own agency. I took one of the employees who was working there with me and we figured it out. And that period of time, late 90s all the way through 2000s, was like the Wild West. Nobody knew anything about how to design for the web, how to build for the web. Developers were learning it along the way. I used to have lunch with tech shops down the street that had just opened up. And we would all just sit around. Do you know how to do this? Have you ever done this? In the meantime, you've got clients asking you, hey, have you ever done A, B, and C? And what do? You say, of course. You talk your way through because you want the work. And then you go back to the office and say, all right, does anyone know how to do A, B, or C? So that was an education in and of itself. I had the great fortune to come across things like Alan and Sue Cooper, who were running Cooper Design at the time, Jesse James Garrett's book, The Elements of User Experience. And a lot of people came to UX, the idea of UX through Don Norman. That wasn't true for me. It was Jesse James Garrett. That book, my head exploded when I read that. I thought, this is exactly, this makes total sense to me, right? It's what I should be doing. And it's funny, all the things that I had learned about design, which was about people, cognitive behavior, psychology, emotional needs. Why does design speak to people? Why does it help them? Why does it guide them? Why does it educate them? Why does it enable them to make sense of their world? All that stuff applied to software. So I have always felt like, to this day, that all those principles that I learned in college, that I applied early in my career in graphic design, continue to carry through to the web, continue to carry through to software and everything else. And along the way, I discovered that mainly because my wife pointed it out to me one time when we were working together. She said, people really pay attention when you're in teaching mode or when you're bringing everybody along in a more sort of a consulting fashion. So that started the slide from tactical work into consulting and then teaching university part-time and then teaching online courses. Same thing. She said, there's this thing called Udemy. They have online courses. It's just videos. It's voiceover. You have 8,000 client presentations. Why don't you take one and put it out there and let's see what happens? So we do it, right? 500 people enroll. Okay, this is cool. 1,000 people enroll. Okay, 3,000, 5,000. Fast forward, God only knows how many years later, almost 400,000 people at this point, between that and my own UX 365 Academy. So I say all that to say that there's no way I could have predicted any of this. But I think it speaks to a piece of advice that I try to give people all the time, and that is you have to remain open to what happens and what comes your way. And there's no reason to say, I'm absolutely going to do this in this way and be rigid about it, because life is going to present you with all sorts of opportunities. And I think if you're paying attention, those doors are open to you and you walk through them. And if you're not, I think you miss out. We grew up with this idea that there's one right way to do everything, or there's one right career path. And if I don't choose right, I'm screwed, right? There's no going back. I'm living proof that's not true. That's my short, long version of my
That's
history up to now.
it's no, it's so amazing. And I feel like today it's we live in a world where there's instant gratification. And so
Yeah,
this idea of working through using grit and resilience to be in a situation that's maybe not as comfortable or not as enjoyable and just learning to find your voice and to be confident and to stand up for what you think is right and to
yeah,
stay true to who you are and to know that if you're not delivering the way that you know you can be, that you need to voice your opinion. Although I am curious to hear your thoughts on where we're holding today in terms of the economy. Today
yeah,
happens to be election day. If you
yeah.
haven't
Vote,
voted,
vote. If you haven't voted, you must vote.
please vote. Um, but it's scary. It's a bit of a scary time. Like for people who are individual contributors, you're on a team. It has to be done thoughtfully, respectfully, strategically. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on like how to balance that.
Yeah, and here's the hard part. I've said this plenty out loud. Anyone who follows me on LinkedIn has heard variations of this rant before. Part of the problem with our profession is us, quite frankly. Not in a bad way, not in a horrible way, but we have generally operated as if UX and UX work and UX research and product design is like the center of the universe. We are the arbiters of what is best for everybody, and you are going to sit down and listen to us. That sounds great on paper, right? All the principles and practices you read about in books or online or in videos or at conference talks or whatever all focus around this idea of we are here to fight for users and we are here to make sure that everybody else does the right thing for users. And what nobody talks nearly enough about is that you exist for the most part inside a business, inside a corporate environment, or at least inside a corporate world where you need clients to pay you. A business exists for one reason and one reason only: to make money. Okay. That's the organizing principle of corporations. We could spend the next hour debating the goods and evils of money and greed and everything else, right? Whatever. It is what it is. The point is, there are constraints. The minute you step foot inside a corporate organization, you have constraints. You have all these other people and all these other departments whose goals do not align with yours by design, right? Companies are built with diametric opposition to me from department to department. Everybody needs what they need to meet their goals. Executives and managers, right? VPs, people that get bonuses for quarterly KPIs. That's their goal. Again, is that right? Probably not, but it is. And because it is, it's something you have to deal with. So we've long talked about this idea of pushing back. It's not what needs to happen. What needs to happen is you need to have a better understanding of all those people on that side of the house and what their pressure is and what their goals are and what they care about and what they don't care about. You can preach UX best practices and principles to those folks all day long. It's going to go exactly nowhere.
Been there, done that.
Okay. You and I have talked about this before. You have to find out what it is that they want. The only way you're going to be able to do anything for users, for customers, the only way you're going to be able to help people, which I believe in, by the way, our number one job is to help other human beings in this profession. But in order to do that, corporate law, so to speak, dictates that you have to get other people to green light that action. And the only way they're going to agree with the time or the budget or whatever that's going to take to do that work is if they also see what's in it for them. You have to serve both masters. I talk to a lot of people who are like, yeah, but that's just wrong. It's terrible. Of course it is. Of course it is. But you'll spend the rest of your life wishing it was some other way. Okay. You can either do that and accomplish nothing, or you can own up to the imperfections that surround you and the impurities in some cases that surround you, and you find a way to go forward. Okay. How do I work with these constraints? And how do I push something through that in the end serves people? I just did a course on AI. There are a lot of people right now who are like this with AI. There are a lot of people who are burying their head in the sand. I'm not touching that stuff ever. It's here.
It's here.
It's here. Companies are going, if they haven't already, they're going to want a piece of it. They're going to want to AI enable something that they're already doing, right? Even if it's just a chatbot kind of thing. There's no closing that Pandora's box. So you can either be part of how that happens, or you can be relegated to the sidelines. And okay, engineering and marketing and whoever is going to drive this bus, and you just sit over there and be quiet. If it's going to be responsible, if it's going to be safe, if it's going to be helpful to people, I firmly believe we have to be involved. And you can't be involved if you don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So again, is it dangerous? In all sorts of ways. But I think what I was saying, keeping yourself out of that conversation is just a bad idea. Nobody wins. Nobody benefits from that.
Yeah. It's so funny because as you're saying, a lot of designers that I speak to have discussed or have brought up the feelings that they have. It's very hard in general as we designers who are actually designing things, user
Mhm,
interfaces for
mhm.
humans to use, but also just designing experiences when it comes to designing dynamics, let's say, like on a team, and really understanding that when a designer brings something up, they see something that a user wants, or they see an opportunity to improve on something. And so they come with idea, and either it's welcome or it's not welcome, or the opportunity is just shut down because it doesn't fit into the manager's goals for the month or whatever it is.
Mhm.
Um, but I find so many designers, I don't know if it's the nature like of our personalities, or if high achiever, full energy, high achievers, perfectionism, like if there are
Sure.
some similar characteristics between
Sure.
designers, but I do find that it could be hard to not get distracted by taking things personally, or
Yes.
getting caught up with all the emotions and politics that are involved with the team dynamics. Like I always used to joke with my friends, like we're like UXing our team. So like you were going to UX the situation, but at the end of the day, like you go in circles and get distracted by and be upset by all the emotions and politics that go on. But at the end of the day, if you know what your goal is and it's to drive the company towards success and to know that you were a valuable contributor on the team, then you have to push forward.
Yeah, and you put that very well, okay? Being distracted by the emotional part of it. Distracted is the right word. Now, here's the reality of that situation. Like people say all the time, it's not personal, it's business. I think that's one of the biggest lies I've ever heard in my life. The fact is this: in order to be good at anything, truly good at anything, you have to care about it. And the fact that you care about it by its very nature makes it personal. Right? That's a fact. So there's no avoiding the emotional investment that lots of people carry into their professions. And as you said, I think designers and UXers in particular have a strong bent towards that. The key is you can't allow that to dictate your decisions. You can't allow how you feel about something to dictate your decisions. People ask me this question almost every week in my life. They go, "Well, what do you do when a client won't take your advice?" And they ask it in a way that assumes that this is the worst thing that could ever possibly happen to me. And my answer shocks them. My answer is, I don't care. Okay. It doesn't matter to me. It's not my decision to make. Number one, a lot of these decisions are made by people in offices I've never met. Number one, what can I do about that besides nothing? The best I can do is say, here's why I think this is the right thing. Here's how I think it serves you. Here's how I think not doing it will hurt you. Right. Here's why I think 6 months from now, you're going to be exactly where you are right now, unless you take a different path. That is the limit of my ability. And I have to recognize that. If I'm going to have enough mental and emotional energy to get up and do it again tomorrow, I have to let it go at that point. Right. When I've given it to somebody and it's their job to do something with it, my responsibility ends. That's not
Mm,
easy, but it takes practice. Okay. But you really have to draw a line and say, at this point, it is no longer in my power to do anything about this. And you got to let it go and you got to get to the very next thing, right? That's my father's thing. Do the very next thing.
right.
Do the very next thing. Okay. Put your energy where it belongs. Put your energy where it'll make a difference. You cannot spend all your, again, emotional, mental, physical, even energy trying to force a decision to be different when you have no control over it, no influence, no power, nothing.
And for those of you who are listening, if you can relate to any of this, because I know for me, this resonated with me when I was in a coaching session with Joe a while back, and he told me this, and I wrote this quote down, and I tell it to myself all the time: just do the very next thing. Like, just go grab a pen and paper and write it down, and just say it to yourself over and over again. Put it on your shower
Yeah.
wall, put it on your mirror. You have to ingrain it. Like, it needs to become an automatic do the very next thing, because we can get so caught up. I know for myself, it's hard when you deeply care and are passionate about what you're doing and the people that you're serving.
All right. But it takes discipline, it takes practice. Okay. I've probably showed you this before, but I have my to-do list every day only ever has 5 things on it at a time. And the only way anything is allowed to be added to that list is if one thing comes off. Now, it doesn't
Wow.
matter if I have 14 things to do that day. They are not all going on that list at the same time. Why? Because the only thing that does is make me feel completely overwhelmed and, oh my God, how am I going to do this? It distracts me. It's an emotional reaction that takes me away from what I'm trying to do right now.
So
So
when do you
again,
realize that, like, at what point do you realize that your emotions are dictating your next step?
I think you always know to some degree. When you're stressed, when you're spending more time complaining about it, at least in your
Right.
head, or worrying about it or saying, "Oh my God, today's going to be such a bad, I don't know how I'm going to get all this done." Like the minute you go there, you're giving power to that parts. And the brain works like this. Once you get on that treadmill, it is going to work very hard to keep you there. That's its job, right?
Right.
We're built to keep whatever is in motion, right? We're built for balance, right? Whatever's happening right now, okay. The brain, the body goes, we got to keep this happening. So you have to forcibly break it. The minute you start going there, the minute you start worrying about, I don't know how I'm going to do this, or I can't believe it, like they didn't agree to, you got to take a breath. You got to take a breath and say, is this serving me right now? Is this helping me get anything done right now? Is it helping me have a productive conversation with somebody else right now?
Right.
Like, I don't believe in arguing
Right.
with clients or with managers, with teams, or with anybody. I think it's a waste of time. You say your piece, you have some constructive back and forth, but the minute it devolves into, no, I'm right. No, another person's going, no, I'm right in some way, you're off the rails. There's nothing positive that's going to come from that exchange. Nothing. It's
What if it yeah,
good.
sorry, go no, you can go.
Now, I was going to say that's a lot like relationship advice that I've seen off and on goes, look, do you want to be right or you want to be happy? This is the same thing. All right. Except the caveat is it's not necessarily about being happy. It's about getting something productive accomplished. All right. If you're spending an hour arguing about how you're correct about something, what have you solved? What's changed? What have you moved forward? Right? What have you enabled? How have you gotten everybody's agreement to build something into a product? You haven't, and you're not going to. You're going to walk around maybe 5 minutes of satisfaction that, like, I was right about that. So what? Didn't gain you anything. You got to be willing to trade off. You got to be willing to compromise. You got to be willing to give. You got to be willing to listen. I'm a big believer, and I want everybody in the room at all times, as much as possible, from different disciplines, all across whoever has a stake in the sand with this project. And I want everybody's opinions, not just the designers, not just the developers, not just the product manager. I want to live in reality. Okay. So if someone has something to say about something, or they've learned something, or they have information that maybe we're not privy to, I want to hear it. It's all valid. And the last thing I want to say before I shut up is that does not mean there's a certain person who uses this incendiary, everybody is a designer thing, okay, across the internet. And I think that's a bad way to go about it. It devalues what we do. So this is not that. This is not everybody can do your job. This is every single person in your organization who is even remotely connected to the work you're doing has something that you can learn from. I promise you that. Whether you think that's the case or not, it's still true.
I think the challenge though, just to push back, right,
Yeah.
is that let's talk to the product managers who are oftentimes sandwiched in between their teams, users, clients, customers,
Yeah.
and business
Getting the
strategists,
worst of all of it.
leadership. Yeah. So, what can we what's a tool that we can equip them with when they see a situation where both sides are screaming until they're blue in the face, but at the end of the day, if the answer is whatever's going to move the needle and affect the bottom line is the answer that we're going with, is there a way, a tool like collaborative workshop facilitation? Is there even just a way of communicating terminology? Is there like a specific tool that you would suggest or recommend to someone who, and if even if you're not a product manager, if you're listening and you're like, I'm a designer on the team, but I can very much relate to this, situation. What would you say is like a powerful tool that they can have in their toolbox when situations like this do come up where they feel like they're trying to balance
Yeah.
and properly execute on everyone's
I think there's
goals.
multiple parts of that. And I think the tools that you use, like my whole thing is whiteboard collaborative sessions, right? It's a lot of question and answers, a lot of diagram and stuff. This is my understanding of what you just said. Is that your understanding of what you just said? So I do a lot of that, but I think it's bigger than that. And it goes, we have to go back a couple steps. People have to be honest. They have to tell the truth about what they really need out of this situation. I think that both sides have to be willing to be open to the other side's input and say, look, I'm up against the wall here. I can't do this by myself. I need your help. By the same token, both a product manager and a UX person and designer has to step up and say, look, I can see the stress. How can I help you? All right. My job is not to argue with you. My job is to help you. All right. So tell me what it is you need to happen 2 weeks from now. When this launches, when we launch this build at the end of the next sprint, what has to happen for you to feel like, okay, that was a good use of 2 weeks of our time? Or what has to happen to make your blood pressure go down, by X degrees? I'm serious. These are real questions.
Yeah.
Those are the questions I ask constantly. So they have nothing to do with what's on the table, right? They're like, look, this is going nowhere right now. Tell me what it is you're afraid of, right? What are you afraid is going to happen if we don't get this right? What are you on the hook for? What's been promised? Has something been promised to somebody that we haven't discussed yet and we don't know about? What is it? And I take great pains to say, look, I don't care what the answer is. There's no wrong answer. I don't care what the reason is, but you got to let me know what it is, because otherwise we're going to be doing this for the next 2 weeks and you're not going to get what you need. And you're going to be looking at me like I'm not helping you get what you need when I don't know what that is in the first place. So a lot of this is semi uncomfortable conversations. We're
Right.
afraid of getting real. We live inside the confines of a product manager does this, and a UX person does this, and a product designer does this, and developers do this. That's not enough. None of that is enough. There has to be open, honest conversation. Product manager, you just alluded to it, okay, are getting the worst of everybody's everything, in my opinion, for the most part. They're getting pressure from corporate. They're getting pushback from designers and developers. If
Mhm.
there is a project manager as well who's responsible for budget and time, they're getting pushback from that person. In government type organizations, if there are logistical issues like with contracting officers and things like that, where certain milestones have to be met, there's pressure from that direction. So you're being asked to straddle everybody's everything, and you're expected to know what your customers or users want. And I think human nature is, okay, I'm going to take all this that's been saddled on me and I'm going to do it all myself, which is normal. So, like I said, two things have to happen. That person, that product manager in that role has to say to the team around him, look, I need help in these areas. Who can help me with this? There isn't enough for me to go around, and I have the headspace. I'm stressed out, whatever it is. All right. Designers have to do the same thing. Developers have to do the same thing. Everybody has to step up and say, look, I'm not sure what we're doing here. And I feel like I'm flying blind and I'm afraid I'm going to screw this up. So can we just talk about it for 5 minutes? By the same token, everybody needs to be saying each other, all right, how can I help you? I've worked on government projects where there were like 6 or 7 product managers, 6 or 7 teams. And as a consultant who's living in the middle of everything, my party line to every single person I talked to almost at least a dozen times a day was, what do you need right now? And that was it. And I let them tell me. And if the conversation went, well, they wanted to devolve into complaining or this person's not doing that, I would just try to politely short circuit and say, I get it. I know the stress. Tell me what you need. My job here is to help you. Tell me what you need and let me help you figure it out. I think
Right.
when everybody goes about their job in that way, a lot of that dynamic changes. You just
Mhm.
remember for a minute that you're all human beings. And you're all doing the best you can and you're all under pressure. Joe's
Yeah.
simplistic idea of the world.
It's unbelievable how we can have a world that is just technology is rapidly advancing. AI is starting to find itself in every single corner. And at the end of the day, with all these problems and all these challenges and all these, it just boils down to like back to the basics:
Right.
communication,
Right.
teamwork, collaboration, just those basic like soft skills. Like we're all people, we're all in this together to make each other better.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a dynamic that I observed early on in my career. Like when I was working for agencies, one of the things that always blew my mind, and I felt naive in a way, was the sudden fear that people would have of each other when they were sitting across from each other at a formal meeting of some sort. It's like the dynamic between people just changes instantly when everyone enters the room. whether it's you and your fellow team members, you and your boss, you and your client, everybody is just like the dynamic changes. And you can tell that everybody is afraid of everybody else. Nobody wants to speak up. Everybody's choosing their words really carefully, right? There's this weird thing that happens. And I just never got it. And I still don't get it. I don't think that helps anything. This idea that you're reducing people down to their roles and you forget that they're humans,
Mhm.
it just doesn't help. I tell people interviewing it's the same kind of thing. I understand the power dynamic is you're going hat in hand and saying, please give me a job. But giving into that doesn't help you in any way. It prevents you from having a productive conversation. It prevents you from saying all the things you need to say about why you're the right person for this job. Because half of your brain is occupied by being intimidated.
Fascinating.
It's a false construct, all of it. These are people who get up and put their pants on one leg at a time or put their shoes on one foot at a time in the morning, just like you do. They're not gods, they're people. Maybe it's
Hmm.
just me.
No, it's so fascinating. It's no, I just I never thought about it, but it's totally true. And I'm just thinking back for me, most of my I would say like most of the time that like my career life has been working remote because I was in corporate for almost 5 years. I was we're heading on 2025. I was basically almost remote and when I went into the office, I was like
Different
it
dynamic.
was scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was intimidating. I didn't and so it's yeah, it's so interesting. And you're saying
Eh,
it was even like that when everybody was going into work every day?
oh, yeah. Yeah, in certain
Interesting.
situations. You're talking to people all day long, right? You're bumping into people in the halls, or you're talking in the kitchen while you're getting your coffee there in the morning or whatever, and people are really casual with each other. "What'd you do this weekend?" Blah, blah, blah. Put those same people in a meeting room at a table, and all that goes right out the window, like these people no longer know each other in some way. Yeah, it's just silly to me. Like, we're still the same people. We can still have a productive, a little bit more human, casual conversation. People start talking at each other instead of to each other,
Mhm.
right? And people start believing this thing of, okay, everything out of my mouth better be right because there's danger if it isn't. And here's the thing, even if there is danger, if you're not right, it doesn't matter because it's not going to serve you unless you get something out there that's real, it's true, that's honest, that invites people in, that helps people, that ask the right questions. If you give into that fear, nothing good is happening ever. It's just not. So I get it. I get it. But you have to practice to work yourself out of it. And remember that everybody is basically here to accomplish the same thing at the end of the day.
Right. So as we're coming on time to wrap up here, I'm noticing a trend and a theme, which is remembering the base like it's we're back to the basics, the soft skills of communication, collaboration, remembering that we're all in this together to make each other better, to make our product or our service better by
Right.
believing in ourselves and believing in our team and being open, honest, transparent people who come together to make it a better place, project,
That's
service,
right.
team.
And that feeds it, by the way, that feeds into the work as well. Okay. I've got a project right now. It's with a government entity. It's a massive piece of software. It's multiple pieces of software. It's 20 years old. It's a legacy system. It's one of the most complex things I've ever seen in terms of what's happened to it over time. It's easy to get intimidated, right? And it's easy to feel like, okay, I got to get my head around this. But it would be a mistake for me to walk away for X amount of time, for 5 days, for 2 weeks, or whatever, come up with some ideas and then come back to everybody and say, okay, here's what I think. It's a hell of a lot smarter to, on a daily basis, say, okay, I got this far and I come up with a bunch of questions and here's what they are. So let me show you this and let's talk through it. And you tell me where I'm correct, tell me where I'm wrong, tell me what I'm missing. And then I'd like you to help me fill in some of these gaps that I have in my understanding. And I do that daily.
Mhm.
It's a much better way to go about doing anything because there's no gap. There's never any gap between what I'm doing and their feedback, which means instead of being this off target 5 days on my own, I'm this off target all the time. And it widens and it shortens and it widens and it shortens. So it's again, we're human beings. I need your help. I'm going to continue asking for it. I don't care about being right. I care about doing the right thing for everybody on this team, everybody on the receiving end of this, all the people who are going to be affected by what we put out into the world. So you got to let that go.
It's very powerful. I'm just I feel like it's something we just have to hear it over and over again because
And you have
it's
to practice it. It doesn't
right.
come naturally. It's okay that it doesn't come naturally. Keep reminding yourself. Keep bringing yourself back. Like these are just people.
They're just people. This is not it's personal, but it's not something for me to take personally.
That's right. It's a good way to
Um,
put it. Great way to put it.
and we're a team, each individually contributing our own expertise and knowledge but at the end of the day, hopefully we can make ourselves transparent and vulnerable in a way that we can accept critical feedback as an opportunity to make whatever it is that we're doing better.
Yeah,
And when we get caught up in, "Well, they didn't like what I did and he didn't like, just remember to just do the very next thing.
that's right. That's right. And we're stronger together.
Yeah.
Always. There's an African proverb that says if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Well, that's awesome. Okay, so if you have a pen and paper, for those of you who are watching and listening, write that down. Write down, just do the very next thing.
Yes.
What else did we discuss that was memorable quotes? I'll put it in the description below. But oh my gosh, no, there were just so many incredible concepts. These are things you got to write down on sticky notes and just constantly see them and remind yourself and just
Yeah.
say it out loud. Like,
Put one in front of you that says they're just people.
they're just people, right? They're just people. They're just people, right? So powerful. If you can take, even if you can just take one, I know for me, just do the very next thing has been a
Yeah.
life changing quote. If
Two.
you could just, yeah, unbelievable. Like just to even take one thing and for the next 30 days, say it out loud 3 times a day. You're gonna see results because it's so powerful. It's so true. And wow, it's so amazing. So great.
Awesome.
Wow. Okay, Joe, thank you. Thank you so much. For those of you who are watching and listening, I know that you gained a tremendous amount. This was an episode filled with lots of practical, real, authentic, amazing advice and just practical strategies to improve yourselves personally, because personal growth and development, I feel like at the end of the day, is what just helps everything be better.
All
There's
work
always
in progress.
opportunities for growth. Right.
It's a work in progress.
Right.
And people can find me in all sorts of places, right? If you have questions, if you want to, people are often afraid, I think, to message me or hit me up on social media or whatever, by all means. Okay. Go to givegoodux.com, go to ux365academy.com, find me on LinkedIn, whatever. And I do have a book out, which I completely forgot to talk about, with Leah Bewley, called The User Experience Team of One at Rosenfeld Media, that I think is not just excellent for people who are entering this field, but for anyone who's a practitioner. It's like the giant 101 of how to do UX, as it was when she wrote it more than a decade ago. Or it was a brilliant book. It was one of those books that I wish I had written, quite frankly, after I read it. So to be invited to
Got it when
help
I was at my first job.
see again, that's
I was the
amazing.
only I was the only team member. Yeah.
That's amazing to me. So to come full circle and be able to bring the second edition into the world, and then on top of that, to have Jesse James Garrett forward to the book
Mhm.
was like, this is my life. Grateful beyond words.
That's awesome. Okay. Where can people get that's on Amazon, right?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. You can go to rosenfeldmedia.com. You'll definitely find it on Amazon. And Rosenfeld's one of the few places where if you buy the physical book, you get the ebooks as well
Oh,
for
cool.
free, no additional cost. So
Super.
strongly recommend you check all that out.
Amazing. Okay, super. Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you for those of you who are watching and listening and tuning in. I know that you're walking away really empowered to take on one of the incredible things that we talked about. You have to choose one because otherwise there's so many amazing things. I know for myself, it's I want to walk away from here and make so many changes. You got to choose one.
Just do
You
the
get
very
to
next
pick
thing.
it. Exactly. Amazing. Okay. Thank you so much, Joe. Thanks for everyone listening and
Thank
watching.
you,
We'll see you in
Tamar.
the next
Appreciate it.
episode. Bye.
See you.
Thanks for tuning in. I hope today's episode gave you a fresh perspective and some actionable steps towards aligning your product strategy with your business goals. Remember, you have the power to drive real change in your team and organization. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps others find the show and supports us in bringing you valuable content. And don't forget, alignment isn't just a buzzword, it's a journey that we're all on together. So until next time, keep pushing for impact and making a difference.